I asked an AI to paint me a sunrise, and within seconds, it did this. What do we see here? There's a golden sun, perfect symmetry, and colors that seem to melt into each other. It's a beautiful image, right? But here's what we don't see. This image wasn't created from nothing. It was built from thousands of photographs taken by real artists. People who waited for hours, sometimes even days, for the perfect light. People who edited their work to capture a feeling. And people who believed that their work was worth sharing. None of them were paid, none of them were credited, and their work simply became training data. Silent, invisible, and unrecognized. Today, AI systems can write like Shakespeare, paint like Picasso, and compose music that can move us. But they do this by learning from us, humans. Is it fair for these machines to borrow the genius of creators without consent, without compensation, and without credit? Every lyric, every verse, every brushstroke created by humans now becomes raw material for algorithms that imitate creativity. And the automated output of generative AI risks replacing the very humans whose originality and creativity made it possible in the first place. That's where the problem begins. Intellectual property rights were designed to protect creators, as we see here, but today they're being stretched beyond their limits. So, when an AI model learns from thousands of artists, who owns the result? The human whose work was used? Yeah. The company that built the AI model? Or the user who typed in a few words into a prompt? Or the user who typed in a few words into a prompt. And if AI can remix ideas like this endlessly, what is the incentive to be original? We are the generation of AI, the first to grow up with it, and maybe the last to remember a world without it. The question isn't whether AI will define our future or not, because it will, undoubtedly. It's how we must define creativity and originality in its presence. How do we harness this revolutionary tool without losing the human spark that built it? How do we create machines that extend our intelligence without replacing our imagination? And most importantly, how do we continue to create and innovate in a world where creation itself is being automated? AI systems are now being built and rolled out at an unprecedented pace. Training datasets can be anything from unverified information from public websites to licensed information from journals or books. These models do not necessarily learn the data exactly, but they recognize patterns using language models such as GPT. And there lies the reason why, even though it is an automated outcome, biases, inaccuracies, privacy, and copyright violations can still sometimes creep into the outputs. Here's some data to put this into perspective. In the European Union alone, the cultural and creative industries generate over 350 billion euros every year. They represent nearly 6% of the EU's GDP and employ over 10 million people across the continent. This is not machine-made value. It's human-made value and human creativity. But these industries are rapidly being transformed by AI, which in many cases borrows without asking. And the scale is staggering because a single image generator can analyze millions of copyrighted works, absorbing their style, composition, structure, and history within seconds. Also, according to the EU's Intellectual Property Office, over 80% of training datasets contain copyrighted works. These can include poems, songs, photos, and even source code. And the internet itself is changing. Recent studies suggest that over 50% of online written content is either AI-generated or AI-assisted. Think about that. It took humanity centuries to build our libraries of knowledge, but it took AI less than 5 years to begin reshaping half of the internet. Meanwhile, global investment in generative AI is projected to reach $150 billion by this year, 2026. And yet none of that wealth flows back to the creators whose works fuel these systems in the first place. So, as machines grow richer in knowledge, creators grow poorer in protection. Creativity loses its reward, and imagination begins to lose its reason. This is not just an economic issue. It is emotional, ethical, and cultural as well. Here's the question: why do we care about protecting creativity? I believe that creativity is how we convey meaning. It's how we share our vision of the world through another set of eyes, mind, and emotion. To show this, I have 3 stories to share. 3 creations, each remembered and admired as great art, but not fully understood until we discovered the why, the who, and the what behind them. Firstly, when Billie Holiday sang Strange Fruit in 1939, she risked her career and her life to make people feel something that facts alone could not. The song was originally written by a teacher named Abel Meeropol after he saw a photograph of a lynching in the south of the United States. It began as a poem of outrage, and when she sang it, it became a protest. It forced people to confront cruelty, injustice, and racism through music. When we learned the story behind this song, something changed. It was no longer just music. It became a cry for humanity. When we learned why she performed it, we didn't just hear it, but we felt it. That's the first truth of creativity. The why gives art its soul. Now travel back 1,000 years in a small workshop in medieval England, where dozens of women were bent before long strips of linen, stitching scenes of war, soldiers, knights, horses, and kings. For centuries, the Bayeux tapestry was admired as a historical object, but no one asked, who made it? Later, historians looked closer, and they found tiny, almost invisible initials hidden in the stitchings. These anonymous craftsmen were actually women, nuns, and artisans who told the story of conquest through their own hands. When we learned who made the tapestry, its meaning changed. It was no longer just history. It became perspective, and it became human. That's the second truth of creativity. The who gives art its humanity. Lastly, when Vermeer painted Girl with the Pearl Earring, he turned silence into something sacred. He was a quiet Dutch painter who lived and died in obscurity. But when we learn about his devotion to light, his patience, and his ability to find beauty in stillness, to many, this painting became something much more than an image. It became a piece of his human life, his way of seeing the world. Today, it hangs behind glass in The Hague, protected by law and admired by millions, because we understand that it is irreplaceable. Not just as art, but as a human experience. And that's the third truth of creativity. The what gives art its legacy. Each of these creations, the song, the tapestry, and the painting, survived the test of time, and their legacy only lived when we remembered why they were made, who made them, and what they were. Going beyond in the digital age is not just about pushing technology forward. It must include pulling humanity along. It means remembering that behind every creation and innovation, there is a human creator behind. Going beyond cannot be a future where content becomes infinite, but identity becomes invisible, and imagination gradually becomes inexistent. Without stronger intellectual property rights, the creative economy will eventually turn into a machine that consumes its own past. A world where anything can be created, but nothing truly belongs to anyone. In 2024, the EU passed the AI Act, the first major legislation to regulate artificial intelligence. It demands transparency and sets fines of up to 35 million euros for misuse of data. It's an important first step, but transparency alone doesn't answer the question: who gets paid for it? That's the challenge ahead. What is urgently needed is a remuneration model adapted to the digital age, where creators are credited and rewarded every time their work informs an AI output. But beyond regulation and remuneration, we must also ask what we, as a society, are doing to keep creativity alive. Indeed, in an age of fast content generation, it's very convenient to simply consume and reuse ideas generated by AI, rather than taking the time to question, think, and create for ourselves. That is what we must change in order to keep human creativity alive. Here's how I believe we can be part of the solution. It begins with a change in mindset, a new ethic for the AI age, one that is supported by concrete systems and not just good intentions. To make this ethic real and implementable, it must rest on 4 key pillars. Firstly, there is respect, which is to ensure that every creative work remains traceable to its creator, and that use of creative content leads to fair recognition and remuneration. Next, there is the responsibility to promote accountable use of AI by creators, institutions, and industries. Then, there is reinvention, which means to build new ecosystems where machines and humans can collaborate while credit, authorship, and value remain clear. And lastly, revival, which is to restore the human spirit of creativity and creation through originality, active participation, and cultural sustainability. Respect and responsibility keep us honest. Reinvention keeps us evolving, and revival keeps us human. If governments set guardrails, and industries, researchers, and artists build bridges between ethics and innovation, then AI stops being a thief of our ideas, but becomes a patron of our imagination. Going beyond cannot be a future where technology replaces our imagination. It means teaching technology what matters. It means standing up for artists, writers, thinkers, and ourselves, and saying, our imagination is not your data. When we protect human creativity and intellectual property rights, we are not only protecting profit, we're also protecting human connection and honoring the struggle behind originality. Machines can copy what we make, but only we can decide what it means. When creativity becomes a button we press instead of a muscle we build, then imagination begins to fade. That is what we must change. That is how we, the youth, go beyond. Not by leaving humanity behind, but by embracing what makes us human. Thank you.